The neon sign outside the club hissed like a dying lung, casting a rhythmic, sickly pulse over the parking lot inside. The air was a thick slurry of cheap vanilla vape smoke, sweat, and the sour tang of spilled beer. I sat in a velvet booth that had seen more degradation than a confessional, my drink trembling in a hand that refused to stay still. Across the stage, a girl with eyes as vacant as a bank vault grinned against a chrome pole. She was technically a masterpiece, but to me, she was just background noise. "Look, I know what you're thinking," I said, leaning toward the invisible audience in my head, my voice barely audible over the bass. "You see the highlights. You see the diamonds on the players' fingers, the entourages, the private jets, the curated lives of gods in high tops. You think they get all the girls. You think the jersey is the aphrodisiac. That's the lie they sell you to keep the ratings high. The truth? Ladies love zebras. There's something about the black and white stripes, the sheer, unadulterated power of being the man who can ruin a billionaire's night with a single breath through a plastic whistle. It's a rush, and it's a turn on. Don't look at me like that, we're all in the gutter, I'm just the one getting paid to watch." I tossed back the scotch. It felt like liquid sandpaper. My skin crawled a familiar, electric itch under my collar. The transition from the strobe-lit debauchery of the club to the sterile, blinding glare of the United Center was a violence I committed against myself every season. My forehead had a piercing pain that I knew wasn't going away. "You look like you fought a lawnmower and lost, Giancarlo," Miller muttered, adjusting his whistle. "Focus on your baseline, Miller," I snapped. My tongue felt too large for my mouth. "You smell like your shit took a shit," Miller added, smiling this time. The court was a blur of hardwood, sneakers squeaking like trapped rodents, and the roar of 20,000 people who wanted me dead. I was a ghost haunting the hardwood, barely tethered to reality. My vision tunneled. Halftime. The locker room was a damp grave. I locked myself in a stall, the porcelain cool against my feverish palms. I pulled a plastic baggie from my sock, my holy grail. A quick, sharp snort, and the world snapped into high definition. My heart shifted from a panicked flutter to a rhythmic, industrial thrum. "Giancarlo, cut the shit, man." Miller was pounding on the stall door. "You're vibrating. You're sweating through your suit. What the hell is happening?" I yanked the door open. My eyes were wide, predatory, fixed on nothing. The office was quiet. Too quiet. Lily was sitting on a plastic chair, coloring a picture of a sun that looked like a bruised orange. The doctor's voice was a low drone, detached and clinical. "The treatment costs are non-negotiable, Giancarlo. Without the payment, we can't secure the next round of care." He slid a paper across the mahogany. The numbers didn't make sense, they were a language of extinction. "Giancarlo." Miller's voice dragged me back to the present. The smell of disinfectant and stale sweat rushed back into my lungs. "I'm fine, Miller," I rasped, shoving past him. "I'm better than fine. I'm the law." The second half was a fever dream. Chicago was playing like they were possessed, the crowd screaming, the momentum swinging like a pendulum. I wasn't watching the game, I was watching the over. I began talking to my imaginary audience. "You see, every game has a bet called the over/under, whether the total score will be over or under a set number. 49.7% of the time the under hits, 50.3% the over hits. Bookies set these odds to give the schmucks a 50/50th chance, but when you're the guy controlling the whistle, those odds tend to drastically shift in your favor." 30 seconds left. Chicago held the lead, but the total was still 6 points short, and both teams decided now was the time to play their best defense. Chicago's star guard cut to the hoop, a clean, beautiful drive, missed shot. I stepped into his path, my hand raised before his feet even left the floor. I blew the whistle. A sharp, Piercing shriek that killed the arena's joy. Foul! I screamed, pointing at the defender. The stadium went from a roar to a vacuum. Pure, unadulterated hatred washed over me. Are you blind? The defender howled, nose to nose with me. That was clean. I put my hand over my mouth and calmly said, get the fuck out of my face or you'll be going home early. Miller jogged over, his face drained of color. Giancarlo, look at the screen. You can walk it back. I didn't look at the screen. I didn't need to. I looked at the scoreboard, saw the numbers shift exactly where they needed to be. The call stands. Get off me. The over hit. Vegas had been humbled, and my daughter had another month of breathing. As the buzzer sounded, the booze began a torrential downpour of vitriol. I stood in the center of the court, soaking it in, a martyr of my own corruption. I changed in the back of my car, shivering as the adrenaline bled out. I pulled out my phone and dialed the burner. Clover, I said. My voice was hollow. Hitting's hitting right. Nice work, G, my brother whispered. But you need to be careful. Memo just told me he heard Lorenzo was taking the under. I paused, looking at the dark reflection of my face in the rearview mirror, a man who had just sold his soul for a chemo bill. Who? The people who own the building you're sitting next to, Clover said, and the line went dead. I looked up at the massive, glowing structure of the United Center. For the first time all night, I wasn't just shaking from the drugs. I was shaking because I knew the game wasn't over. It had just moved from the court to the parking lot. Do you think it was worth it, knowing the debt you've just incurred is far steeper than anything you could ever pay off?